The radio exploded with static, then a voice cut through so sharp it locked my chest. Mayday, mayday, engine out. Full power loss, we're going down. I was already running. Tom, it's Nick. Talk to me. Can you hear me? Yeah, he said, breath ragged. Me and Sandra, altitude 1200. She's panicking, Nick. I can't keep it steady. I looked up and saw the plane, a navy blue, Cessna 172 nose-hunting prop dead dropping over the rooftops, like gravity had grabbed it by the tail. Eyes on me, I said into the mic. Trim for best glide. Don't chase it. You see the open strip behind the houses? I see fences, trees. God, it's tight. You can clear it. Trust me. Fly the airplane. Neighbors spilled into their yards, phones raised. And standing dead center in her backyard, smiling, already filming, was Karen. The wheels hit grass. Metal screamed. The plane stopped. Then a calm voice behind me said, "Sir, this aircraft didn't fail." And that's when I knew this was never an accident. Her name was Evelyn Whitmore, and she wasn't just another loud neighbor with opinions. She was the president of the Meadowbrook Estates Homeowners Association, a position she treated less like volunteer service and more like elected office. Clipboard, bylaws, legal threats, those were her weapons, and she knew exactly how to use them. Evelyn believed rules weren't meant to protect people, they were meant to control them. She had that polished, practiced confidence of someone who'd never been told no in public, always impeccably dressed, always smiling when she delivered bad news, the kind of woman who could issue a fine with one hand and offer a neighborly wave with the other. But what made Evelyn dangerous wasn't her voice or her paperwork, it was her patience. She never shouted first, she documented, she escalated, she waited. If you ignored her letters, the fines doubled. If you questioned her, authority inspections appeared. If you complained to the board, she reminded everyone that she was the board. People learned quickly. Mailboxes got repainted. Yard signs disappeared overnight. Conversations stopped when Evelyn walked into a room. Fear didn't spread loudly, it spread quietly, one violation notice at a time. When I moved back onto my grandfather's land, Evelyn didn't introduce herself. She introduced her power. She told me the airstrip was under review, that zoning could be reconsidered, that easements had flexibility, and she said it all with a calm certainty that told me she fully expected to win. To Evelyn Whitmore, the neighborhood wasn't a community. It was a territory, and she had no intention of sharing it. The first violation notice didn't come with a conversation. It came taped to my truck door like a parking ticket. Bright white paper, bold black text, unapproved commercial vehicle $250 fine. I stood there in the driveway, staring at it while the engine ticked as it cooled. Same truck I'd driven since before retirement. Same navy blue paint, same dented bumper. The only thing that made it commercial was a faded decal on the door, Hartley Aviation, a sticker my grandfather had slapped on sometime in the late 70s and never bothered to remove. By lunchtime, there was a second envelope. Unauthorized exterior signage, $150 fine. By sunset, a third. This one came with photos. My fence line. My grass strip. Wildflowers along the boundary, native growth untouched for decades. Red circles. Timestamps. Improper vegetation maintenance. I didn't call the OA. I didn't argue. I photographed everything. Logged dates. Saved envelopes. The next morning, I heard heels on gravel. Evelyn Whitmore stood just outside my fence, sunglasses on clipboard pressed flat against her chest like a badge. "Good morning," she said pleasantly. "I just want to be sure you understand non-compliance escalates." "Escalates to what I asked." She tilted her head, smiling. "That depends on how cooperative you choose to be." Behind her, a neighbor paused mid-walk, then quietly turned around. By the end of the week, the fines stacked up: fast noise disturbance for a maintenance engine start, unapproved lighting for runway markers installed in 1962, unauthorized aircraft operations for a plane that hadn't even flown yet. Every notice was signed the same way: E. Whitmore, HOA President. It wasn't about rules, it was about pressure, and I could tell this was just her warm-up. The moment Evelyn stopped acting alone, everything shifted. She didn't come back to my property herself. She sent the HOA. 2 men arrived late in the afternoon while I was securing the hangar doors. Matching navy polo shirts, matching clipboards. The words Meadowbrook Estates Compliance Team stitched neatly over their chests as if embroidery alone could turn trespassing into authority. "Routine inspection," the taller one said, already lifting his phone. "We've had multiple reports. Reports of what I asked." He didn't answer. He just kept photographing. The hangar, the runway lights, the fence line, my parked aircraft engine, cold keys in my pocket. You don't have permission to be here, I said. The shorter man finally spoke. HOA bylaws grant us inspection rights. Over HOA property, I replied. This land isn't part of your association. They exchanged a glance. Evelyn says otherwise, the taller one said. That night, the paperwork multiplied. Formal notice of non-compliance. Board-authorized inspection required. Failure to cooperate may result in legal action. This time, a law firm's letterhead sat at the top. By morning, a laminated notice had been zip-tied to my gate. Official inspection pending, do not interfere. Neighbors grew quieter. People crossed the street instead of passing my driveway. Conversation stopped when I stepped outside. Everyone understood the message. If Evelyn was willing to come after this, she could come after anyone. That evening, I laid everything out across my kitchen table. Photos, fines, letters, timestamps. The pattern was obvious. She wasn't enforcing rules. She was creating a record, because paper trails aren't about compliance. They're about justification. And justification is what people use right before they take something that doesn't belong to them. The escalation stopped being theoretical at 2:47 a.m. My phone buzzed on the nightstand motion alert. Then another. Then 3 more. I opened the live feed and my stomach dropped. 2 figures were climbing over my fence. Dark clothes, gloves. One of them carrying a crowbar, the other a backpack that clinked when it hit the ground. They moved straight toward the hangar, not wandering, not confused. Purposeful. I didn't call anyone yet. I grabbed my phone, slipped on boots, and went out the back door, keeping to the trees. The cameras were already recording everything in high definition, time-stamped backed up to the cloud. When I got close enough, I recognized them. The compliance guys. The same polos. Same faces. Now, without the smiles, one wedged the crowbar into the hangar door. The other pulled out spray paint bright orange from the bag. That's when I stepped out of the shadows. Evening, I said. Little late for an inspection. They froze. The crowbar clattered to the concrete. The spray cans rolled across the pad, hissing softly like snakes. You're trespassing. I continued holding up my phone so they could see their own faces on my screen. Breaking and entering. And whatever that is, vandalism. This isn't what it looks like, one of them said too fast. Then you're gonna love court, I replied. Because you've been on camera since you left Evelyn Whitmore's driveway. That name changed everything. One of them went pale. The other clenched his fists. She said it was authorized, he muttered. Said accidents happen around aircraft all the time. That sentence landed colder than the crowbar. Accidents. That's when I understood this wasn't about fines, or compliance, or noise complaints. She wasn't trying to pressure me. She was trying to erase the airstrip, and she didn't care who got hurt in the process. I dialed the sheriff, and for the first time, Evelyn's game turned criminal. The sheriff arrived fast, faster than Evelyn expected. Red and blue lights washed across the hangar walls as Deputy Chen stepped out, calm, alert, already watching the 2 men sitting on the concrete with their hands on their heads. She didn't ask many questions at first. She watched the footage, all of it. The fence climb, the crowbar, the spray paint, the timestamps lining up clean and perfect. These aren't inspectors, she said flatly. These are suspects. At the station, the story unraveled quicker than I thought it would. One of them folded almost immediately. Said Evelyn promised the HOA would handle the legal side. Said they were told to make the hangar look unsafe, condemnable, dangerous. Then he said something that made the room go quiet. She kept saying if the plane stopped flying, everything else would fall into place. That same week, the county returned my calls. A clerk flagged multiple filings tied to Meadowbrook Estates, boundary challenges, zoning complaints, easement objections, all submitted by the same HOA president. Same signature, same handwriting, same urgency. More importantly, the county surveyor confirmed it in writing. The aviation easement was valid, recorded, and untouchable, which meant every complaint Evelyn had filed wasn't just wrong, it was knowingly false. I sent the footage to the county attorney, then the financial records Margaret had helped me compile. Fines collected, special assessments approved, no matching expenditures, missing money. By Friday, the tone shifted again. Letters stopped coming. The compliance team disappeared, and Evelyn went quiet, not apologetic, calculating. Deputy Chen didn't sugarcoat it when she called. She knows the paper trail's turning against her, she said. People like this don't back down when they're cornered. What do? I asked. They escalate. I looked out toward the runway lights, humming softly in the dusk. And that's when I realized whatever Evelyn was planning next wouldn't be paperwork. It would be something irreversible. Evelyn didn't send another letter. She didn't send inspectors. She didn't send her lawyer. She did something worse. She waited. For almost 3 weeks, nothing happened. No fines, no photos, no drive-bys. The neighborhood exhaled just enough to feel unsafe doing it. People assumed the pressure campaign had finally collapsed under its own weight. I didn't. Silence like that isn't surrender. It's planning. Then my radio crackled one Thursday afternoon while I was on the porch watching a student pilot run touch and goes. Nick Tom's voice came through tight but controlled. "Something's wrong. What are you seeing?" I asked. "Engines running rough, RPM fluctuating." "Abort if you need to," I said. "You've got room." A pause. Too long. "Nick, I've got full power loss." The words hit different this time. "No restart," Tom continued. "Altitude's bleeding fast." I was already on my feet. As I ran for my truck, my phone buzzed another alert from the security system. Not motion. Access log. Someone had been near the hangar earlier that morning. Not inside, just close enough. I looked up and saw the plane low silent descending over rooftops that hadn't existed when the easement was written. Houses packed tight where open land used to be, families outside, phones out, and standing in the middle of her backyard, framed perfectly by trimmed hedges and white fencing, was Evelyn Whitmore, watching, recording, not panicked, not surprised, satisfied. Sirens started in the distance as the aircraft dropped below the tree line. Neighbors were shouting now, people running, kids being pulled back into houses. Then the wheels slammed into grass just inside the protected corridor. Metal screamed. The plane skidded to a stop. Alive. Before anyone could speak, a black sedan rolled up behind the first sheriff's cruiser. Two people stepped out wearing Navy windbreakers, FAA across their backs. One of them crouched beside the engine, leaned in and froze. Then he looked up and said the words that ended everything. This wasn't mechanical failure. And suddenly, Evelyn Whitmore wasn't watching a crash anymore. She was standing at the center of a crime scene. Evelyn Whitmore didn't wait for permission. She marched straight into the cleared corridor, heels sinking into the grass, phone raised high recording, like this was a press conference she'd been preparing for years. "This is exactly what I warned the community about," she announced loudly. "Reckless aircraft operations. Illegal airstrip activity. That plane nearly crashed into my home." Tom was still climbing down from the wing legs unsteady. Sandra followed, shaking so badly an EMT grabbed her arm before she collapsed. Evelyn didn't look at either of them. A deputy stepped in front of her. "Ma'am, you need to step back." "I'm the president of the HOA," Evelyn snapped. "I have standing here. That aircraft damaged my fence and endangered residents." Phones were everywhere now. Neighbors who'd once crossed the street to avoid eye contact were filming openly, silently. No one interrupted her. No one defended her either. One of the FAA investigators approached, voice calm, measured. "Who owns this aircraft?" Tom swallowed. "I do." "And who owns the airstrip?" the investigator asked. "I do," I said, stepping forward. Evelyn laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Ownership doesn't matter when you're operating illegally. This ends today." Behind her, the second investigator knelt by the engine, removed a panel, and leaned in close. He stayed there longer than expected. Then he stood up. "We need to secure this area," he said to the deputy. "No one leaves." The word secure changed everything. Deputies shifted positions. EMTs paused. Conversations died mid-sentence. Evelyn finally lowered her phone. "What's going on?" she demanded. The investigator met her eyes. This aircraft didn't fail on its own. And for the first time since I'd known her, Evelyn Whitmore looked uncertain. The FAA investigator didn't raise his voice. He didn't explain. He simply held up a gloved finger and pointed. "Fuel line," he said to his partner. "Right here." They leaned in together. One sniffed, the other frowned. "That's not avgas," she replied. "That's contamination." A ripple moved through the crowd. Phones shifted closer. Someone whispered, "What does that mean?" "It means this wasn't a mechanical failure," the investigator said calmly. "Someone introduced a foreign substance into the fuel system." Evelyn shook her head immediately. "That's impossible. I've never been near that plane." The deputy turned slightly. "Ma'am, please stop speaking." But she didn't. "I've been filing complaints about this airstrip for years," she said, voice rising. "I warned everyone. Accidents happen with planes all the time." The investigator looked up at her. "Accidents do," he agreed. "Sabotage doesn't." I stepped forward then. "I have security footage," I said, "from my property. From 3 weeks ago." Both investigators turned to me at once. "2 HOA compliance contractors," I continued. "On my land. At night. Tools in hand." One of them admitted Evelyn discussed causing an incident. The crowd went dead silent. The investigator pulled out his phone. "This just escalated to federal jurisdiction." He looked at the deputy. "Call it in. and behind us, Evelyn Whitmore's breathing went shallow and fast. Because the story she'd been telling for years had just collapsed under its own weight, Evelyn tried to recover. She laughed too loudly, too fast, waving a hand like she could brush the moment away. "This is absurd. You're all jumping to conclusions. I don't even allow aircraft near my property." No one laughed with her. The deputy stepped closer. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you again to stop talking." Evelyn ignored him and turned on the investigators. "This is harassment. I've been targeted for years for enforcing community standards. If anything happened to that plane, it only proves my point, Mrs. Whitmore," the investigator interrupted, calm but final. "You were just recorded admitting prior knowledge of incidents involving aircraft." She froze. Behind her, another deputy spoke quietly into his radio. Then he nodded once. "Evelyn Whitmore," Deputy Chen said, stepping forward with cuffs already in hand, "you are being detained pending a federal investigation into aircraft sabotage and related offenses." Evelyn's confidence cracked all at once. "This is a mistake," she said sharply. "I want my attorney. I'm the HOA President. Do you know who I am?" "I do," Chen replied. "And so does the FAA." The cuffs closed around her wrists. Phones rose higher. Neighbors leaned forward. Someone gasped. As Evelyn was guided toward the patrol car, she twisted around, searching the crowd for support. No one met her eyes. Her kingdom didn't fall with a scream. It collapsed in silence. No one cheered when Evelyn was taken away. The sirens faded, and what settled over the corridor wasn't celebration, it was release. People started breathing again. Neighbors stepped closer cautiously at first, like they didn't trust the ground not to shift under them. Phones lowered. Someone put an arm around Sandra. Another neighbor handed Tom a bottle of water, hands still shaking. For the first time since I'd moved back, no one looked over their shoulder before speaking. "I'm sorry, a man I barely knew said quietly. "I should have spoken up sooner." Others followed. Short sentences, nods. Apologies that had been trapped in throats for years. "I got fined for my mailbox. She made us repaint twice. We were scared." I leaned against the fence, adrenaline finally draining out of me, and felt the same cold weight lift from my chest that I'd carried since my grandfather's last warning. The airstrip felt different now. Not quieter, lighter. The plane sat damaged but intact in the grass, proof that the easement had done exactly what it was meant to do, save lives. Deputy Chen caught my eye and gave a small nod. This wasn't over, but for the first time, the fear had changed sides. Deputy Chen's phone rang while we were still standing there. She put it on speaker. The county attorney's voice came through clear and steady, cutting through the low murmur of the crowd. "Based on the FAA findings and the evidence submitted," he said, "we're filing charges for federal aircraft sabotage, conspiracy to commit violent felony, and reckless endangerment." A pause. "In addition, our financial crimes unit is moving forward with embezzlement, wire fraud, and false filings related to HOA funds." I watched faces change as the list continued. Evelyn hadn't just abused power, she'd monetized it. More than 6 figures in HOA fines and special assessments had been funneled through a shell consulting company tied to her family. No services, no invoices, just money disappearing while roads crumbled and the pool stayed closed. The attorney continued, voice colder now. "There's also sufficient evidence to pursue elder financial abuse related to the forced lien and property seizure involving Dorothy Perkins. That one hit the hardest." Sentencing guidelines were read out next: mandatory prison time, asset seizure, full restitution to every affected homeowner, and a permanent ban from serving on any HOA board in the state. No dramatic reactions, no shouting, just the quiet understanding that Evelyn Whitmore hadn't lost control because of one mistake. She lost it because every crime she committed, every fine, every threat, every lie had finally been counted. And this time, the rules applied to her. No one moved locations. No time jumped. We stayed right there by the grass strip, the damaged plane, the open corridor that had just saved 2 lives. Deputy Chen ended the call and nodded once. That was it. The machine was in motion now, and it didn't need me anymore. As the sun dipped lower, something subtle happened. People didn't leave. They lingered. Neighbors who hadn't spoken in years stood together, pointing at the runway lights, asking questions. Kids edged closer to the fence, staring at the plane with wide eyes. Fear had been replaced by curiosity. A county official walked over and quietly confirmed what Evelyn had tried to erase for 7 years. The easement was ironclad, protected, permanent. The airstrip wasn't going anywhere. Tom squeezed Sandra's hand and laughed, once shaky but real. "Guess we picked the right place to land." "You did," I said. Later, someone asked what would happen to the HOA. "There won't be one," the official replied. "Not like that." I looked out over the strip my grandfather built decades ago. Same grass, same alignment, same purpose. Evelyn had tried to rule through control, through fear, fines, and silence. But the thing she never understood was this: runways aren't about power, they're about clear space. And once the sky is open again, it's very hard to close it.